So today we got Pete Lewenson, and Pete and I go back. Is it early or late 1990s? Is it?
It's
I think.
98, 99.
Holy
99. I want to say 99 because we worked on Y2K together, definitely.
Oh my God! Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
And I was when I was interviewing Ross, we were saying that we met via you
Yeah.
because he said you brought him in for a project, and I was like, I don't remember. I'm thinking to myself, but I know I've known him a long time, but I just couldn't recollect the exact moment where he and I met.
And that's where, like, I was trying to jog my memory from when you and I met, and it was definitely at Savitz
Yes.
because I was working on a big project and our internal team couldn't handle the development of it whatsoever. So then we brought in like a local
Yep.
Philly
Pete.
IT consultant. Yeah.
Yep.
And we went round and round for a couple months and was just not getting anywhere. And me having a little bit of a background, I said, you got to find somebody else that understands what our business is and what we need.
I
So he
remember that.
ultimately found you. And that was, pleasant surprise, but because I mean, you're a local boy, I'm a local boy, your wife, we went to the same high school, all
That's
that
true. Yeah.
stuff. So not that we knew each other, but yeah, I mean, so that was coincidental. But then Ross was working with me in the firm because then I brought him in from our prior
But was it on web stuff or
organization.
was it like new? Because I know you went through a branding thing when I was there a couple times. Was it? I don't
Yeah,
remember.
I mean, so we were like a 30-year-old legacy organization, actuarial consulting, which is super, super, you
Exciting.
know,
Yeah.
exciting. Yeah, I'll say exciting. And we had just never had a new branding. And there was some, drama history within the organization, and we never had any cohesive logo, anything of that nature. So I had worked with Ross at another organization and we're all fellow alum from college days.
F&M.
Although F&M,
What
different
is
years
the?
though.
But what is the mascot for F&M?
We're dips. Go dips.
I don't even know what
Diplomats.
that. I don't even know what that means. Okay.
Yeah. So we're diplomats of the world. And that's kind of a new branding. But interestingly enough, like so as I was an undergrad, F&M was regoing or undergoing like a whole new branding effort. And I had an opportunity to meet Ross, and he was the one who redid all of F&M's
He
branding, to my
he
knowledge.
told me when he was walking, I think his one son through there when they were starting out, and people were talking about. He's like, yeah, my dad actually did the branding. It was like 20 years ago though. It was really a
Yeah,
long time.
it's longer than that. Obviously I've got the gray hair to prove that it's like
That's
longer
true.
than
That's
that.
true. Because you
But
graduated what, 94, 96,
97,
97? Okay.
97. So
Wow.
um, yeah, met Ross through yet another fellow alum. They were older than me, had given me a shot, during an internship, and Ross was doing the branding for him. So I met Ross, and then when I left that organization, brought him over to Savitz. Um, and then, you guys all met and we worked on some pretty cool projects together
Yeah, no, it
back
was
then.
fun. Yeah, we were talking about how we all just kind of hit it off and stayed connected and friends for 20 plus years now, which seems like it was yesterday. It's kind of wild.
Right. Right.
And okay, so let's go back to when you first started out. You got out of college, another F&Mer like
Yep.
Ross.
Bummer.
Was Savage your first
No,
gig? No?
no.
Okay.
So the opportunity that I had, how I got started was through an internship, through another friend of a friend through my wife. Um, she had done an internship for a King of Prussia organization with an F&M
Hmm.
alumni one summer, and then the following summer, she had recommended that same internship to me, and it was dealing with employee benefits, insurance, property and casualty, record keeping, all of these things that surround the employee benefits space. And being just business major, didn't know anything about it, but they for the summer internship they just had me doing like data processing, and to me wasn't that interesting, but I plowed through most of the summer work, the data entry, within like the first week. And started wanting to do, learn more about the business. And how do you do that? You stay late and you ask, the guys and gals that were running the shop, more information about that. But because I was an alumni, I had a little bit special opportunity to then talk to the owner and all of that stuff. So he took me under his wing, introduced me to the VP there, and they just threw whatever they could at me to learn. So read the Internal Revenue Code, read, all of these specs about employee benefits
Exciting, exciting times.
and all
Exciting
that
times.
stuff, right? Yeah, exciting times. But the one thing that I kept noticing was they were working on a mainframe. So like all the data entry that we were doing was on an old style mainframe computer. And I'm like, it's late 90s. Like there's newer technology that's out there, client server technology and all of that stuff. And I
Not
was
that
like, did
much
you guys
newer.
ever?
In the 90s, it wasn't that much better. Yeah.
No, true. I mean, yeah, when I started college, we still had a mainframe with a VAX system
Yeah.
where you had to sign on, with, your credentials through a terminal and all of that stuff. I know if there's any kids that are listening to this, like, what are you talking
Yeah.
about?
Like, what are you talking
But
about?
yeah, so they were working on a mainframe system, and we started talking like, is there any interest in moving all of this off to a client server technology and all that stuff? And so the owner, who was also an FNM alum, said, yeah, he had a bit of a technical background, and this was something that they were looking to do. And I knew a lot of the server hardware type stuff because I was interested in that, and I read self taught and all that. So I helped build out the servers, set them all up, do Windows NT back then and all of that, um, to get away from me having to do like data entry. So doing all of that, we then built new systems and engineered all of that stuff, and I learned it from the back end. But I was always interested in meeting with clients and talking to prospective clients and whatever. So I learned everything from soup to nuts about the business. Um, and I stayed there for a few years and had an opportunity to then move to another organization, which ultimately was Savitz. There was a bunch of guys that ended up buying the organization Savitz from the owner Sam Savitz, and brought me on as kind of a smaller, younger equity partner and all of that, with the intent of building out some new systems that could do employee benefits record keeping. They were all pension actuaries. So on pension retirement side is the polar opposite from the employee benefits health and welfare side. And over the last couple of years, I had built that, kind of knowledge base up, systems and all of that. So when they talked about building out systems, I needed additional resources. And so that's where then we found ultimately you,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah. It's funny. When you said, what we needed to move from, mainframes to client server. And back then, if you were just interested in technology, you were now the technology guy. There were no certifications really. I mean, they were just starting to come out, but most people weren't, there was no ITIL. People weren't running around like, are you ITIL certified? It was just like, oh, you're
Right.
willing to build some servers for us and put them in the racks and then run some cables. Great. You're now the IT guy. It was
Yeah.
pretty funny back then because there was real no separation from the network guy to the developer guy. They
It
were
was
just
all just
everybody did a little
IT.
bit of everything, which
Right.
I think
And
was
what
great because we learned a lot. Like now there's very much separation. There's the security people, there's the
right.
networking people, there's the architects, then there's the software engineers,
Right.
there's
And
the
there's
middle
front
tier
end, back
developers, there's the
end.
front,
Yeah.
like everybody
Right.
has these little lines that boxes that they work in. But back then
Right.
it's just like, oh, you want an app? Okay, you just work in every area. And I just think that you understood the ecosystem better when you did it that way. But there's nothing wrong with hyper focus at the same time. But I'm a little old school. Uh, okay, so you landed at Savage. I remember working there with you and Kevin, the brother-in-law, and a bunch of other folks. I was there for quite a while,
Yeah.
and then at one point,
You lasted longer than I did.
that is true.
Yes.
Then we had the unfortunate passing of the CEO at that time. He's a
Right.
great guy, great guy. But when we were there, like to your point, we did a lot of exciting things. We did new systems, we did new software. Heck, I think we wrote a new CRM pension management system while we were there for the pension team.
Yeah.
So that was basically like your second gig, right? what what did you expect from corporate America, and then what was the reality of corporate America? Because you were like this. I remember meeting you. You were matter of fact, I couldn't believe when I met you. You were like, I
Younger.
think so. I was 30 something. You were like 25, maybe
I
maybe
was
25.
younger than that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and you were already a
Right.
VP and a partner, and I was like, what is it? Is this what happens? Like because I was relatively young too, and I didn't want to have. I had like a real job for 10 minutes, and decided I wanted to be a consultant.
Right.
But and back then, getting into IT was like the next thing. So everybody was a consultant. If you knew how to write code, you're suddenly a consultant. But I remember meeting you and I think, God, this guy's so young and he's already like at the top of the food chain at this company. And you were eager. You wanted to change this and do that. You were very much not cynical at all yet, right? You were like, we haven't
It's a
beaten
good
you
way of
down
saying
yet.
it.
Corporate
That
America
is a
hasn't
very good
beaten you
way of
down.
saying it.
So, what did you expect versus what the reality of it? I know some of the stuff that you're going to tell me because I was part of that ride,
You
but
lived it, right?
yeah, I'd
Yeah.
love to get your perspective because I never really asked you this. You know, what did Bright Eye Pete think, and what did Bright Eye Pete get?
That's a good way of putting it. Um, on one hand, you're right. Yeah, was it the second official gig? On one hand, yeah, from an official employment standpoint, but in reality, right? One, I had an internship, you work for a couple of years, and then by the time I moved over, I mean, I already had more or less 5 years under my belt. But even within, that chronological time frame, most people, kids at that point in time, and even especially kids now, um, they expect to work like a 40-hour work week. I was working easily 60, 80-hour work weeks, right? And I think that that was one of the things that, like, my perception was you needed to do that in order to get ahead.
Yeah,
You
you were
needed to,
really detailed. I remember working with you. You read every manual, every like you were really into. I'm going to absorb as much as I can
yeah,
because it's a great opportunity. Like I said, you were bright eyed
a
Pete, and
sponge, right? Yeah,
yeah,
you
you
weren't
were like,
jaded
I'm
and
going to change the world. This is going to be great,
it,
right?
right, because it was the thought process was how do you leverage technology, new technology, right? Because this is the cusp of, the web, the World Wide Web, and information superhighway and all that fun stuff, right? How do you leverage that to a very staid, boring industry? And how do you make it exciting so that people at that time, like my age, right? I was excited about it. So how do you get other kids excited about benefits, insurance, like really, really boring stuff? So I started and was doing all of that stuff with the wide eye, bright eyed, sort of hope to have other people as enthusiastic as I was for everything. And and I think that the people that you meet along the way that also had that enthusiasm to kind of get involved and work with you and sit beside you and figure it out, people like you, right, are whom I wanted to surround myself with. And not everybody is like that. So I think that part of my perception versus reality was there's far fewer people that share that same enthusiasm than everybody else.
Yeah, I remember being there. Most people were about. I mean, let's be honest.
Yeah.
There's about 9,000 actuaries in the country, and back then there were probably like 6,000, and
Yeah.
we had
We
20
had
of
like
them in
40.
the office.
We
Yeah,
had like, I think it was the largest single, like solely actuarial consulting firm that was out there.
and they're not the most exciting people to talk
Yeah.
to. Like they're smart as shit, but they're just
Yeah.
not the most exciting people. There were a couple that were funny,
Yeah.
Bill, Ed, and
And,
a couple
yeah.
other ones like Tom.
Yeah.
But it's a pretty dry environment overall. And you were again, IT was really just kind of like bursting onto the scene for a lot
Right.
of
There wasn't
companies.
even like the definition of IT, like
Right.
information technology, like wasn't a coined term, right? It was just you were the tech guy,
Yeah. But
right?
you became
You
like the de facto like CIO benefits guy. Like
yeah,
all
yeah,
the IT decisions, talk to Pete. Like they
yeah.
didn't even No one wanted to be involved with it. They just wanted stuff to run. Now, if stuff
Right.
didn't work, that was a different story. Everybody
Yeah.
wanted to be involved. But you were pretty much, and you had an affinity for tech. Like you do it now. You're building stuff all the time. You're like a closet nerd.
Yeah.
Um, but you were that way when I met you. And I don't know if you were
Yeah.
like that pre your internship, but definitely technology and building out servers and upgrading all the software was big on your list in addition to health and welfare practice that you were trying to build out.
Yeah. Like to me, the business side of it is kind of a means to an end to get to play with things, right? So like it is a good way. And I think that you and I have over the years had conversations about like sometimes you need to focus more on like the core business end of it than just
The
the
toys.
minutia, like
Yeah.
the toys, right? You know, in
You're right.
any
It
of
does
my
get your
hobby,
foot in the door though. You're right. Like you're going to let me do what this part because you need this practice build out, but you're also going
yeah.
to let me do this.
But
Okay,
yeah, you're going to
cool.
let me
Like,
buy all this hardware and put it
yeah.
together and, you know, see how it works and it's the latest and greatest and all of that stuff. Yeah, like I find that's a personal passion or habit of mine, right? That I've always had. Doesn't matter whatever, photography, music, whatever. Like I'm always like looking like, oh, what's like the cool thing that's out there, you know, and can I use it for something? Um,
Back
but
then
yeah, like I
too,
was
it was interesting because if you knew about technology, you were pretty much the only guy in the office that knew about technology. So
right,
no one would understand. We'd go to meetings and no one would understand what you were saying at all.
right,
They'd be
and
like, okay, let's go ahead and make that work. That sounds great.
right. And you know what? And that also was kind of a perception versus reality thing. Again, through enthusiasm, like I was so interested in it, you would think that other people would become interested, but you realize like no, not everybody. They just get it to work, right? We don't care what it is, just figure it out, get it to work.
Yeah. And training
But
back
yeah,
then was like, all right, I'm going to walk by your desk later on. I'm going to show
right,
you how to install that new program and then you can
right,
use email now. Okay.
right,
Well, great. Sounds good.
right, right. And so long as it worked, everybody was happy. The minute that it didn't work was your fault,
Yeah.
right? So you
Well,
know,
let's
but
let's get into that
yeah,
too because you were again health and welfare practice you were trying to build out, got to play in tech, young guy, still not beaten down by corporate America.
hmm,
Back then, what did success look like for you? What were you thinking? Because you were a real business guy. When I met you, you were like salesy business. You loved talking to the clients. I mean, that was a big deal for you. You enjoyed
yeah,
when the dog and pony shows came into the office or
yeah.
when you had to go out. But what did success look like for Pete at 24?
That's a pretty simple answer, and I mean, I think it boils down to two things. It was money and respect,
Hmm.
right? Because at early 20s, right, nobody respected me because you were young and the people that I was working with, clients that I was working with were all significantly older, right? Like us. So talking to a 20 something year old, you back then, you absolutely you knew shit and you know, like why am I talking to a kid, right? I should be talking to the more senior individual. So respect was a big deal to me in that that was a definition of success when people listened to what you were actually saying and followed it.
Well, and you also,
Um,
that's why I think that's probably why, correct me if I'm wrong, but you over indexed on learning and knowing. So when you walked into those rooms, I might be the young guy, but I'm going to be the smartest guy in the room when it comes to this particular topic, whatever
yeah,
topic A was.
yeah,
And the VP title helped, but your point is right. As soon as you walk in, most of the time we walked in, these people were in their 40s,
yeah,
and we were both young. And it's like,
right.
why should I believe what this young whippersnapper has to tell me?
Yeah. How could you possibly know anything about this,
Right.
right? Because you clearly don't have enough years behind you. So I think that, you know, working a lot, you know, being a workaholic, working 18 hours a day allowed me to kind of play catch up, to be wiser in terms of the knowledge base than my chronological years or peers, you know, that were also both starting out and, you know, in their careers and doing things. Experience helps, right? So the more experiences that you have, whether or not that's client facing, back office, or talking with people. It's all experience.
Yeah, it's
So
interesting because my kid will ask me, "Oh, what would you do differently?" And I would say, like, right out of school, there, even for you, there's not much I'd do differently. You just work hard, put the
right.
hours in. Hopefully, you get respect. I think that's a good answer. I think that's the right. I never thought about it that way, but it's money and respect. I want to get paid, so I
Yeah.
want to I want to feel like I'm getting paid what I'm worth, not being ripped off because I'm young,
Right.
but I'm also not expecting the world because I am young and I've got stuff to learn, but also to get some respect to show like I belong at the table, right? If I put the hours in, I put the time in, and that is hard. You're making your bones when you're young, right? So
Yeah.
changing that, and you are willing to put in those crazy hours because everything is fresh and new, and again, you're not cynical to the point where you think all that is enough. Like
Yeah.
that's if I put in the time, I work hard, 60 hours a week, 80 hours a week, then I'm good. And reality sets in after time, and work is more about relationships than it is about it's about being liked in relationships. I tell everybody it's like the two most important skills you can have are being able to partner with people you don't like and to be able to be likable because that'll get you places that skill alone won't. And it'll also, I mean, we've all been to places and workplaces where you look at someone and go, they absolutely do not belong in that position, but the boss likes them. And so they're
Yeah.
there. And for whatever reason, the boss is a blind spot for them. We've seen that as well. But what I guess the long winded way, which is my typical way, uh, where did some harsh lessons get learned for you where oh this the just the 80 hours a week and knowing a lot is not just the answer.
Hmm. That's a good question. What was the turning point? Um, as it relates to the organization you and I, were with, I think that the turning point was there's other people and there's politics that are involved that you're not always aware of, right? Even though as part of the, senior leadership team, there was things that are going on behind the scenes that you may not be part of, right? Decisions that are being made or situations that are happening. And sometimes, people are forced to make a decision, that impacts you that you didn't necessarily see coming. So I think, playing that back, as you mentioned, the CEO, president of the company then, young guy, was diagnosed with a terminal illness. And I think that everybody from a larger ownership standpoint started saying, uh-oh, like, well, what's going to happen to the organization? So we got to stop the investments. We got to preserve what we have because everybody wanted to keep their own chips, right? So ultimately, the
It's
older
every man for
guys,
themselves at
it's
some
every
point.
band for
Yeah.
that's the best
Yeah.
way of saying it. And ultimately, because I was the new guy in and I didn't fit in with what everybody else was doing, I became, expendable to a certain extent.
Yeah, I think the
Um,
difference that's interesting you say that. Um, when you're young, you have a lot more time, right? So
yes,
you're like, you're willing to you're like, I'm 20, I got plenty of time to get back all the equity and we're going to build this company. We're going to make something great. But when people are in their late 40s and they see what the empire that they're trying to build starting to crack, they're all about shoring it up. And they don't have the time window that you have.
right.
So,
And some
and
of them were in their late 50s or,
yeah,
early 60s.
I think one of them
So,
actually retired while we were there. Like they
yeah,
just yeah. So and then there's the payout for that. So you've got to have
yeah,
the
right,
money to pay that out.
right,
So it's just interesting, looking back on that time where when you're young, you don't think of all the same things as a 40-year-old is thinking
no,
when there's challenges with money. And at the end of the day, it will be every person for themselves. Like if they all have any partners are going to look out and protect their pile of cash or their pile of chips, as
right,
you put it, and you know, it is funny though when you are young, you don't think about you. Maybe it was just me. I was naive enough to think like just putting in the work and delivering was enough. And there was so much more to the office
Right.
world. It is, as you pointed
The
out, so much
politics.
politics
Right.
and the likability and the, partnership. If you don't pay attention to the politics and those things, it doesn't matter how hard you work. If you gain the wrong enemy, and
Right. Yeah.
they don't even need to be an enemy. If you lose allies, that's all it has to be, because then people are easily put on a fence, and when it comes down to cash or staying with the group or showing that it could put them at risk, the decision for them is easy, right? It's
Yeah.
very simple what side they're going to land, and that's, I think, from my perspective, that seems like it's the harshest lesson that I learned in corporate America. That
Yeah. I,
you,
I
you
mean,
it's not about just putting in the time and the hard work.
no, no, because you see a lot of that now with private equity, right? And, saw a lot of that as well as part of the next stage in my career where it's not even so much politics, but it's just the
Math.
bottom line. It's
Mm.
just math. And it's the math that they want, right? Not necessarily the math that makes sense or the math that you can rationalize. It's whatever their goals are that they set, which may not be profitability, which may not be whatever, right? Because you don't know what necessarily the drivers of whatever they're looking to do are. But ultimately, if the math doesn't work out, it's just cut and dry. Boom, done.
Yeah,
It
and it's
doesn't
not
matter how much time
personal,
you put in. Yeah, it's not personal,
but it
and
feels
which I mean,
personal.
yes,
It
it
feels
does,
personal.
especially if you are the type of person to care about what you're doing, you're putting time in, you're making an investment into, the intangibles. It's not just necessarily the 9 to 5, but it's your own personal time that you may not be compensated for. You may think that you're going to get compensation through either a bonus or anything like that, but if a decision's made that they deem is not personal, no matter what, it is personal to you.
Yeah, no, it is. It's like no hard feelings, right? It's like, yeah,
Right.
kind of a little
Yeah,
bit.
yeah, right.
Uh,
Because that is the part too about getting older is when you're young, you don't have spouse, you don't have kids, you don't have a house, mortgage, all of that thing. So life becomes more complex
mm,
and the decisions that necessarily impact you or that you're thinking about and doing and all of that stuff, they're just way more complex decisions.
yeah, your paths get narrower and narrower.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so you left Sabbaths, and then you moved on and you did a couple other stints, and some of it. So go over a little bit. Were they as exciting? Were they, better, worse, kind of the
I,
same?
yeah. So no, I think that it was even more exciting, right? Because, you know, the first, internship, yeah, and job was with like a 25, 30 person organization. And then moving on to Savitz was like an 80-person organization, give or take. Um, Moving on to the next stints, then they started to become larger. We started out at, I want to say it was maybe about 30 employees, which was still a really, really small environment where you had direct interaction with CEO and, personal relationships and all of that stuff, where then we grew that into about almost 300
Hmm.
in a very short period of time. So that was exciting because it was a very different dynamic. Savitz was looking to grow, very slowly, organically, because that was just the nature of the business. Whereas the next organization was, you know, let's just dump as much money into this as possible, win clients, build everything out as fast as possible. Everything was go, 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 as quick as you can, as fast as you can. So that was very exciting.
So you like the
And
pace? That was
I
like,
like the pace, but in my nature, it was still I had my core responsibility, which was benefits, insurance, and all of that stuff. But I still had a chance to delve into all of the technology, all of the growth, all of the things that fueled that, in addition to then larger scale marketing opportunities and risk management, and all the things that go along with large organizations. Um, so yeah, it was just way more learning opportunities that I
Mm.
looked at it as, So, and again, you put the time in. So it's like always like I had my quote day job, like that was my core responsibilities. But then beyond that, I would always try to volunteer to see, hey, who needs help with different things and talk to all the other senior leaders who were responsible for those individual pieces of it. I wanted to know what they were thinking. How is it working? How's it going to impact, certain decisions that we were making on the IT side or the benefit side or anything like that, all with the goal of improving the organization.
And then the next one was similar to that.
Organization wise,
Yes.
yeah. I mean, so, and that was the whole thing is that, it starts getting snowballing, right? Until ultimately, then I said, enough of corporate type stuff. And then I said I wanted to go the entrepreneurial route
Yeah.
and
What
go
was
off
that
on my own.
defining moment for you that you just said, I don't want to play in corporate America anymore. I want to set my own path?
Getting sick of the politics
Mm.
and some of the private equity decisions that were impacting me, even though um, I had zero control over it.
Mm.
So the minute that you realize that there are decisions that are being made, because you reach a certain age and you reach a certain critical, you know, things that are going on in your own personal life at that time, you have three kids and you know all of that stuff. You start saying if people are making decisions that are going to impact that, I'm not going to have that anymore.
So it's funny
So
when you're young, you're hoping and wanting the respect of your peers and you
yeah,
want the money. When you're older, you realize that even when you get it, it's still not secure or safe at
yeah,
all, which
right.
is
Because then
kind of weird,
yeah,
but
at
yeah.
that point, I definitely had the respect of whomever I talked to, and right, part of the senior leadership team. We were one of the fourth largest organizations in the country, right? That we built that up to, um, in the insurance space, and was working with household name clients, Tommy Hilfiger and WebMD and so many more. So I definitely had the respect, but the minute that it impacts you financially, then it's like, whoa, wait a second.
Yeah, it's like there's never one of the reasons I left, same thing you're saying, is that because you're never really safe. There's no moment where it's like marriage. You can never say in marriage like, "Okay, we're good. It'll last now. I don't have to work anymore.
Right.
We've made it past 25 years. It's all good. It's all gravy." Right? Just you're always having to work at it. And so maintaining your position, you think that you've reached a level of status or respect where you're good. But at the end of the day, it's kind of like professional sports. You're only as good as that season, right?
Right.
That last at bat or that
Yeah.
last playoff, and then it's like, sorry, no, no, not nothing personal, but we're trading you to the Lakers. It's like, okay, like thanks. I didn't. It's something I did. Nah, it's not working out anymore. It's
Right.
like,
It's
okay,
business, right? Yeah.
yeah,
We're looking to, like you're getting a little older and we need
yeah,
to, backfill with some younger blood and all that. Yeah.
yeah. And I was. What do you think? I'm just curious because I did a whole video on. I think remote work is actually bad for your career, and one of the reasons was especially for young people because you mentioned a lot about and we talked a little bit about you know office politics, and you said I would meet with the CEO, I would get to do this, but when you're young, I think all of those accidental bumping into and meeting VPs and CEOs and the C-suite are really helpful if for your career potentially because they can recognize you or take a shine to you, whatever it is. And without those moments, right, you're just a square in a sea of squares on a Zoom call. And it's like you get basically you're just a background and there's no personal connection. You don't get to attend a meeting in person with the VP where they're like, oh wow, I really enjoyed their position and learned about something, vice versa. So the VP
Right.
can see you talk, get your vibe. And I just think that that's really a shame. As much as the office politics sucks, there can be some really cool moments where, and as well as I do, sometimes the meetings suck, but when you walk out of the meeting, there's a hallway conversation that is
Right.
actually better than the meeting. And if you're lucky enough to like hang out when you're young and get a glimpse of it and hear it, you can learn things that you just won't in the meeting, right? More often than not, the outside the meeting room was actually better because we never got anything done in meeting rooms.
Yeah,
Uh,
or after hours, right? You're
yeah.
staying late and somebody walks by and they sit down like next to you or whatever, or you're grabbing lunch or grabbing dinner or whatever. Yeah.
What's your take on remote work from that standpoint?
So
Given that both of
I'd
us
be
work remotely,
right,
yeah,
exactly. And I was going to start by saying off, I'd be hypocritical if I said I'm against remote work wholeheartedly.
same.
Um,
I think it's great, but only after kind of seasoned a little bit.
Correct.
I don't know why, but
Well,
that's just my
well,
take.
yeah, it depends upon a lot of factors, I think. And it's not right for everybody. And it's not, I think right 100% of the time necessarily, because like you embodied that, right? You weren't living in Philly
Mm.
when we were working together. And so you had to do that commute. And being human, right? We recognize that that was a long commute. Um, in the grand scheme of things, of an hour and a half, 2 hours, to go back and forth. But
That's a normal
you
drive to
know,
the office nowadays with traffic.
yeah, right. And I did that for almost 10 years, right?
Yeah.
Um, I I I think for a younger person, everything that you said is true in that I think you need, especially early in your career, you need those interpersonal, sort of interactions with folks. And I mean, I may be going down a path, but like I see it also with like dating, right? Like we've got younger adults, kids that are now young adults, and it's so much is virtualized, right? Oh, let me just go on an app and, look at people and swipe left, swipe right, and then start talking to them via text message. There's less and less, I think, interpersonal interactions, whether or not it's meeting somebody after class. Hey, what are you doing after class? Let's go to lunch together. Let's go to dinner together. Let's go study together. Let's do this. That I find myself sounding like the old guy when I'm talking to my kids about, hey, are you doing that? Right? Are you going to a party? Right? Not that I want to hear about the parties that they're going to, but um, I at least want to know that they're interacting with people all the time. Because, outside of my own kids, even like you hear about other kids, young people, um, where they're not getting out as much, right? My wife and I, we were just out this weekend. We went to a yacht rock concert, right? I'm embarrassed to kind of
Is
say
that
that.
is a concert the right term, or is that a nap? Did you go to Yacht
it,
Rock
it
nap?
it was a very good cover band. There were, a couple hundred people there. It was a good time, but it,
You and the
we
wine
we we
moms
don't
have
judge about any musical tastes or
it's too
preferences, right?
funny.
We've been to our share of hard rock concerts too. Um, but we'll go out on the weekends, and then we went to a bar tavern afterwards, and there was like nobody there, and it's like 10 o'clock at night, and we're like, where are all the young people?
Yeah,
And we've been, yeah,
we did. When we were younger, we would go out after work.
right,
What was that place? Hula Hands down the street. Was it Hula
right
Hands?
on Rittenhouse Square,
Yeah,
yeah,
right now. Yeah, we'd go there. And there was that great restaurant there too. I used to go to all the time. Um, Caddy Corner from the office. But yeah, we would all like go to Hula Hands or some other place down there, and
right,
people would connect. And yeah, you're right. I see that too. And we've all moved our kids to the burbs. So
right.
I grew up in the city, if you want to call Northeast Philly the city, but it was the city, and you were in a row home of like 100 homes on a block, and you were surrounded by kids. Now we didn't have phones. Like I think you and I remember when I first started, we both had the little Nokia. Like
Yeah, that's
it just
right. I
came
think I
out,
still
and it
have
was
it. Like
like,
I
I
collect
think
all
I
that
still
stuff.
have that. Yeah, and
Yeah,
it's like this big, and then you got the Palm Pilot. I remember the Palm
yep,
Pilot. I was
yeah,
like, what the hell are you gonna do with that? Like that doesn't even make
yeah.
any sense. You're like, look at this pen. The pen comes out the side. It's like, what? I don't get it. And then Blackberries came out, and I was like, yeah, I'm not into like my fingers. I can't type on that little
Yeah, right. I
keyboard.
was not a fan of a BlackBerry.
But I remember those little pot. We were like back then. We'd show off our little phone. Like put it
Right.
here. You'd
It could
take
fit
out
in
your
your little
phone. Yeah,
pocket.
and they were
Yeah.
worthless other than for phone calls. But it was cool that you could take a phone call. Now that I wish mobile phones were never invented. Because when we would leave, we go out. no one would know where you are until you wanted to talk to them
There was no
again.
pictures of anything.
That is
There was
true
no
too.
videos or pictures.
Yeah, which is hard. I mean, I think if you're young, that's a hard thing to know. Like, I don't think people understand that that is once it's out, it's out.
Yeah.
Whereas, we didn't exist until phones basically, until camera phones came out. We didn't
Yeah.
even exist in the world. No one knows what we did when we were younger. Um, but yeah, it was a different time. And you're right. It's a shame. I think kids are more sheltered. Part of it is a little bit of the Gen Xers. We moved out to the burbs because we could. But when you move out to the burbs, your kids get less ability to mingle with kids because
Yeah.
you're just separated from people. And, then it became play dates. We didn't have play dates when I was a kid. We just went outside and
You just went
randomly
out
met
because you
up.
didn't want to be inside,
No.
right? Staring at the same four walls day in, day out,
Even when
right?
video
Or
games came out, you were just like, okay, I'm done. Let me go out and
right. I still make that same comment, right? Because I know my kids, they play video games and they're like in hour-long matches and all that stuff. And I'm like, we played Frogger, right? If you didn't make it across the street, you're dead, right? Game over,
yeah, and
or
it's only so much you can
whatever.
play asteroids. Like, all right, I'm done.
Exactly.
Right
Right.
now, again, the games weren't nearly as intriguing. Although I'd argue people back play tons of Minecraft, and it's like, well, that's like a game when we were kids. It's not that great compared to some of the newer games that are out there, like the first person shooters and stuff like that. But yeah, it's a different generation. I get that. That leads me to like, what would you have kids? What would you tell young people who are leaving college today and hopefully got a degree that's useful? Um, what would you tell them? Say, okay, here's how I would chart my corporate path, if it's a corporate path, because I'll give you mine after you give me yours. But what would you tell someone?
Yeah. Um, it boils down to kind of the same things. It's interact with people, right? And it's not necessarily about the job that you're doing. It's about getting the experiences to learn more, right? Because I have a different philosophy, college and all of that stuff as well, is that college necessarily, depending upon what you're studying, is not there to prepare you for corporate America,
Agreed.
right? So
Agreed.
so that's like kind of a big deal. And I think that some kids believe, you know, just because they're taking an accounting class or an economics class or a marketing class, that is directly one for one translatable into what they're going to do corporate America. And some of it you can also say for the sciences, right? Like most of my roommates were all biochem majors and all of that stuff, and then became physicians,
I
right?
mean,
So
STEM feels a little bit closer to reality.
yeah,
It's a little bit more prep, but every other degree, I would pretty much argue I'd be on your side to say, look, college, other than some of those core rigid stems, is more of a rite of passage, right? It's
yeah,
a place to do what you said, socialize with people who think differently than you, get to meet different people from around the globe,
yep,
learn that there's different cultures, there's different people, and then not every, but you can still all get along. At least we could now, not so much, but you could mingle with different people and you can have fun as well. But it was more about developing the advanced versions of your high school interpersonal skills.
right. Life, it's just all life skills,
Yeah.
right? Having a conversation like this, right? Just going off in different directions and
It's an
all of
expensive
that.
way to have it because
It
it's not
is.
cheap anymore. But yeah,
No,
um, but yeah, it is. I agree with you.
right? So to that end, for like a young person entering corporate America, it's like have those interactions with people. And so to your earlier question about could that be done virtually? Yes, possibly. Do I think it's better in person? I absolutely think it's better in person, right? Um, and then realize that even at the job that you're doing, you have to take the experiences that you're, having to be and kind of internalize them to then be able to leverage that as your next steps, whatever they may be, right? Because back in the day, our parents' generation, like you worked at that same job for 30, 35, 40 years, right? And you retired doing the exact same thing, probably for the exact same employer. And it's absolutely not like that anymore.
Yeah, it's weird because back then, like my grandfather, He worked for Asplund Tree Company, right?
Mm.
45 years, retired, got a hermetically sealed clock as a gift, and got a small, very small pension, right?
Right.
My dad, cop, right? Mostly because he really wasn't educated much. Got out of high school, went in the army, didn't go to Vietnam, but was trained. And then, just next thing was like, okay, I'll become a cop because back then it paid pretty well and it was a steady job and that was that. And
Right.
now, even for us, I'd say when we were getting out of school, if you were going to college, you were pretty much guaranteed a job. Like it was, if you had a college degree, and even in IT, when I first started, because technology was just getting like really started. And I picked that as a major because I thought, it seems like it's going to be an up and coming thing. So I kind of guessed right, but got lucky to be fair. And it, but I feel like I could have picked business or any of these other ones and it would have been just fine, right? There were pretty much jobs out there to be had. Um, and back then, your parents, and I'm segueing here and you'll get where I'm going. You would, don't follow your passion, get a job. Like even for me, I went to trade school because I was like, I blew up in a very blue collar neighborhood. You always need a trade to fall back on. You never want to go hungry. So,
Mm.
and I loved it. One of the best things I ever did. And didn't go to college right out of school, did trade, and then decided to go to college because I got a job and people were like, you should go to college.
Mm.
Uh, and I wanted to experience the life of college too. So that again, it
Right.
wasn't really so much I'm going to learn a whole lot, but it was just more of I want to get the experience. But where I'm going with this is when I said to you like, what would you tell somebody who's younger? I now tell people like follow your passion, and the reason I say it is, uh, when we were younger, um, there were so many opportunities to make money, and at least where I grew up, blue collar, it was always you needed a practical job, a practical skill to make money. Find the thing. Scott Galloway, he's an author. He's talked about this. He's like, find the thing that you're good at and do it, right? And what you're good at can be the passion as well. It doesn't have to be something different.
Right.
But in general, it was like, don't follow your passion. People who tell you that are rich people who've made their money. So like, oh, follow your passion. I disagree with that because I think, you know, the rich people are also telling you don't follow your passion, go make money somehow. But my point is, I think there's so many opportunities now where they maybe weren't so much in the past. Maybe you could argue there are to actually start your own thing, to be an entrepreneur. Like
Yeah.
the internet did not exist when we were younger. There wasn't like, oh, I got a passion to write music and I'll self produce. Back then, your chances of going to LA or Seattle or, Nashville to get discovered was like crazy slim, right? And so, but now, and even not even now, when I was younger, you could self produce, make your own music and get it online. Hell, you can create your stuff and put it on Spotify or Apple tomorrow.
Right.
And I think,
SoundCloud.
yeah, and I think people should try to go after what they want because and I know again, long winded with AI, I just feel like there's so many jobs that we would normally have thought secure. Like when I was younger, you said, you'll get rid of coders. I'm like, you're crazy. Like that's not going to happen. Right. And now there's so many companies cutting their coding staff and letting AI do it and keeping a small staff to just always like monitor because it makes so many mistakes. But there are like these jobs that were like rock solid secure that
Right.
maybe aren't.
Lawyers. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. And so, and I mean, I don't know if you heard Musk and all them, they're talking about like, we can make a robot that's going to be able to do surgeries
Right.
and it'll be more reliable and efficient. And
Yeah.
I'm like, he's not wrong. Like if you have very normal, like appendicitis or just routine surgeries, why not just have the robot do it? Complex, maybe not so much, but you know, I'm more of a follow your passion now because you have so many venues to explore that you could potentially become or make it in the passion versus I don't know if there's a guaranteed job in any one of the things that you can go to school for, right? Maybe engineering, maybe STEM is still there, but I think slowly some of the STEM stuff is going to be, niche, very niche. You're going to have to get into something that's we don't use humans for that anymore. That's an AI. You're going to have to do this. What are your thoughts on that versus Again, you have kids in college. You know, do you say like, don't get that stupid degree, go get that degree?
And I think that oh,
Your mic's cutting out.
there's like a wire. Okay.
So start from the
Um,
beginning on. So I think so because it's
so I think um, with the kids, in college, the main thing has been for me what I tell them because my wife and I may not be on the same page all the time when we talk to the kids, but my main thing has always been learn, right?
never
Learn
stop
how to
learning.
do,
Yeah.
yeah, never stop learning and recognize, to what you're saying, follow your passion. I agree with that, but what your passion may not be directly um, may not directly facilitate you being able to survive on a day-to-day
Oh,
basis.
and I agree. My caveat to them, my kids, I tell them is if you're gonna do it, if you're gonna follow that passion, and it may not
Right.
be the thing that's gonna get you the house in Bluebell, right? You're gonna have to really quickly learn to live within your means and
Yeah.
stay within that. Because if you can do that and be happy, great, follow it. But if your idea of living is a 3,200 square foot house in a good neighborhood, then you're going to have to probably drop the passion idea and go like you can do it on the side, but try to follow that other career path. But if you're able to control your spending, if you're able to live within a particular lifestyle, then by all means go after it. But just there's not a there's absolutely sacrifice that's going to be involved if you're going to go. I want to be an art major. It's like
Yeah.
okay, here's what you probably aren't going to get from that. But if it's something that's your heart's desire, go for it. But you're not living in my basement.
Agreed, right? And but that's my main mantra is you need to stay current. You need to constantly be learning. You need to constantly be trying new things, being uncomfortable to a certain extent. Because, we've seen, we have friends, personal friends, and relatives and all of that stuff that we can draw examples for where they either follow their passion, right? Or they're doing things that they're not happy about doing. Um, but they define themselves as being successful because they've been able to adapt and continue doing what it is that they enjoy,
Well, and
right?
that, that's interesting because when I say what I said to you about follow your passion, somebody else brought up to me some other things that I thought, one of the reasons why I say follow your passion is because you're gonna have to do whatever you do when you get out for the next 40 years,
Yeah.
right? So yeah, you can find something that you're good at, but not necessarily you enjoy, and do it for the next 40 years. And if you do the math, just working hours, vacations, you're probably going to spend about 48, 49% of your time conservatively doing that over the next 40 years. So almost 50% of your time will be doing that thing. And when you're 24, that seems like I'm not even thinking about that, right?
Right.
When you're our age, you start going like, wow, what did I do? Like, did I just spend the last 30 years doing what? Did I even remotely enjoy that at all? And so you start feeling like you might be stuck. And it's harder, to your point earlier, when you have the trappings of life, the mortgages and the kids and the colleges, to go, I'm going to reinvent myself. Like,
Yeah.
really? You are? Like, how you plan on doing that? Right? How you plan on selling that to the wife or the husband? So and you're smiling because you did it, right? I've done it. So it's a bit of a
Yeah.
tricky move. And not saying you can't do it, but I guess where I was going with it was you you have to really think about, and it's hard to do when you're 24 or 22. Is this something I want to do for the next 40 years? And I know the younger generations things like work life balance but it's not easy to just go, I don't feel like doing nursing anymore. I'm going to go
Right.
do this. So it usually ends up being a career. And I think a lot of people are just unfulfilled. And that's the crux of this, where I was going with this is, does work, like everybody's, oh, I need to be fulfilled at work. And you're like, work has to be fulfilling. And I thought about it. I was like, well, does work have to be fulfilling because we know we're spending 50% of our time of our life doing that? Or do we say, excuse me, or do we say, look, I'm going to find the thing that I'm pretty good at and go do it, but I'm not going to expect any fulfillment from that. It's a means to an end. My other 50% of my time, I'm going to do what I like to do, what I want to do, and that's going to give me the fulfillment that I need. And I guess where I'm going with it is, have we put, because I don't think our grandparents did. Our grandparents didn't go, work needs to be fulfilling, right? We somehow, Gen Xers and the millennials, started building this fulfillment thing about work. I need to feel like I'm being valued, and I need to be cared. I need to feel like this means something. Maybe it doesn't. Like, maybe it's just a job, right? Now companies at the same time, they want you to feel like you're married to them. You
Yeah.
know, we're your family. I love that. We're just one part of your family.
We're a family,
We're
right?
family. Now we'll kick you out of the family, right? But you're
Right.
part of this family. And so, again, long-winded, but I'm trying to figure out, like, does work need to be fulfilling at all, or should we take our grandparents' model and just say, no, it's just a job, and the rest of my life is what I go do to do the artwork or the music, and I'm not looking for work to be fulfilling. And I think that's where we get bummed out and depressed. We think about, man, this work sucks and I hate it, and it's like, no, it's I don't need to like it, or do
Right.
I need to like it?
I think I think it's a combination of all those things. That it's like, if you can find something that you find satisfying, meaningful, all of that stuff, then that's amazing, right? But I don't know if you're going to necessarily find that day one out of college, as a young person, if you decide to go to college straight out of, high school. Sometimes it takes people a long time to figure out what that passion is. And so my point to all of that is, keep doing different things, whether or not that's, you know, for work or outside of work, to find the things that not, what's that Marie Kondo thing, like that give you joy or whatever,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
right? Um, that sounds cliche, but I definitely see it with my own kids, right? I know what they like to do. Is is it yeah, um can you make a living from it? Probably not, right? Could you at some point in your life? Maybe. But short term, yes, you have to kind of do work, right? That you may not enjoy, but create enough time, create enough success for yourself, where then you can pursue the things that you do enjoy doing, you know, as much as you want to, right? So, let's just use the cliche, playing video games, right? Can people make money playing video games nowadays? Yeah, you can go on Twitch, you can stream, you can, compete and all of that stuff. But it's just like professional sports. How many people are actually making a living doing it? Probably not a lot. So you may have to get a boring job, and that boring job needs to be something at which you can earn a living from, so that you can then spend your downtime playing video games. If you can find some way to blend work and playing video games together, then that's great, right? If that's your passion, if that's what you really enjoy doing. For some people, it could be gardening or painting or, anything like that. For me, it was, technology and hobbies and all of that stuff. And so I was able to blend that at work. But the minute that that stops, then yeah, I think that you start to lose interest in what that work is.
Yeah, no, I I agree with you. I've been wrestling with my discussions with my son about taking follow your passion, and the more I'm thinking about it, I was like, well, do you need to get fulfillment from work? Is that important, or should you just
Yeah.
look at work as a means to an end that allows you to do the passion things on the side? But the other part of that argument is, you brought this up. Once you have kids and a family and a house, that other 50% of your time becomes like 15% of
Right.
availability of your time. And when you have little kids, there's no time. Like, when your kids are under 25, I guess I'll call it, you're that's it. You're like work blur, and then suddenly they're teenagers. You're like, when did that happen? So you when for the first, I'm going to say if you get married when you're 28, let's just say, I'm going to say until you're about 37, you don't have any free time, and then you start having free time.
And then you get
um,
two dogs, and then you have even less freedom.
right. So it's like that's why I'm on this fence of like, you know, don't worry about getting fulfillment from work. Get it on the side. Just find something that you kind of like to do, just kind of like to do, that you're
Right.
good at, that you can make money off of. So it gives you the ability to go and do these other things. The problem I'm having with it is I also know the reality of life. Work drains you, and if you really aren't, it's not your thing, but it makes the money. If you're looking for that, if you have to like turn a switch off in your head saying, I'm not looking for any fulfillment here. This is just a means to an end. Train your brain. Then if you can't do that, you're not going to have a happy existence. Like it's going to
No.
be, I don't like it here. It's going to wear on you. You're going to be miserable. You're going to bring it home, which is even worse. And that's why, but I'm like, well, how did our grandparents do it? Like, how did they just, I know my grandfather, he watched trees getting cut down for 45 years. Like,
Right.
it wasn't like, this is my passion, right? Like, that's not what it was.
But you know what? There wasn't as much entertainment back then.
That
So
is true.
whether or not it was drinking or whatever, people did or watching TV, that was the at most what their happiness was, spending
But are
time
we
with
more
friends,
selfish now?
barbecuing, whatever. Like I hear from my kids, "Oh, I have no free time. I have no free time." But yet they're working like a 9 to 5. And I'm like, "You don't know what that really means."
Well, it's
Right?
like when you have your first kid, you think,
Right.
I have no time. And then you have your second kid, you're like, holy shit, I had so much time. I had
Right.
so much time, right?
And that you don't realize, but you learn to be more efficient and you learn how to just get stuff done, and you learn that that personal time doesn't necessarily need to be everything from outside of work. So my point is that if you learn to just kind of being uncomfortable doing different things and all of that stuff, you get into a routine of just maximizing your ability to get stuff done and get satisfaction from the things that you get done. So like for me, when I was younger and also with our kids, like we scheduled everything for them, right? Oh, you were in school from 9 until 3, and then from 3 until 4, you're at this practice, and then from 4 until 6, you're at something else, and then we're gonna have dinner together as a family, and then you're gonna do homework, and then we're gonna watch TV together. We're gonna watch a show, and I found we got so much more done than when they're left to their own devices. They got into high school and they're like, I'm not doing this anymore, right? I don't want to do that. I'm just going to go to school and I'm going to come back and I'm going to say I have a lot of homework. And then homework's going to take all night long because they're just doing their own thing to make themselves happy. But are they really happy?
Mm. Life is about time management. You're right.
Yeah.
And I guess, and the reason I'm so torn with it, that's why I think a live stream on this would be great, is I'm torn because of as you get older, you start to realize you have less and less time left than you had on.
Right.
And you start going, wow, I wasted a lot of time,
Right.
right? On stuff I probably shouldn't have. And some of it was work. It was what I was saying earlier where I said, when you're young, you put your bones in, you want the respect, and you work crazy hours, right? And part of it you could argue, well, it paid off. Like I became vice president, I got paid, I had the job. But at the end of the day, you know, did it pay off? Like if you went and did 8 hours or 9 hours instead of 15, would it really have made a difference? Right. And back when we're young, it's all the difference in the world, right? But
Right.
as you get older, time is you start realizing how valuable time is. When you're young, you think you're
You have an
indestructible. And
unlimited amount of time, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
So that's why I struggle with the advice, because I know that, and this really came up, and I told Ross this when I left European Wax. I had about 4 months off, and it was the first time my brain was like, "Oh, you have a break."
Right.
So my brain started thinking, "Wow, do you even really want to do that anymore?" And so you started asking questions that you never had time or gave yourself the time to ask. And it was a little bit of a weird moment. And I
Yeah.
had another friend who recently did the same thing. And she's like, oh my God, I totally get what you're saying. And you start questioning your decisions and whether or not you want to go back and, why am I giving all this time to a place that I don't really care about, that I know would let me go in a minute if they had the opportunity? Like, why do I care so much? Right. Oh, now's not a time for me to put my resignation in. Like, why do you care? Like, if they need to let
Right.
you go, like, what's the difference? So I guess I just really struggle. I know that companies generally don't care about people as much as they want you to think they care about you. And so is it worth putting in all that time and sacrificing? And as you get older, you have less and less time to work on those passion projects because you're generally tired, right? You know, once you hit 50, you're just like, I need a nap, right? And so and I know I'm just going on here, but it just really makes me question, have we spent too much time working and not enough time trying to get some joy out of life?
Yeah, but so I mean, all of that, I think I may not be able to articulate it well, but it's the work that you do. If you can get satisfaction out of it and happiness and all of that stuff, great. I don't think that's what work is for. Work is for,
Work.
yeah, it's work, right? I mean, if it's whatever your lifestyle that you want, you need to do something to achieve that lifestyle, right? If you're
That's the best. You know
comfortable,
what? That is the best answer anyone's ever given me. It's like work is the thing. You do the thing based on the lifestyle you want to achieve.
yeah,
That's it. And that's all it's for. That is really a
right.
good answer.
And why that came to me, I have no idea. But it's, if you're happy just living in an apartment, eating McDonald's, whatever, then okay, then you
More
don't
power
have
to
to,
you. Yeah.
yeah, right. But if you want bigger, better things, keeping up with the Joneses or whatever, then you got to find something to do that is going to make that happen. If you get joy from it, all fantastic. Very few people can achieve that. But not to then forget about the fact that during your downtime, like you've got to maximize your time so that during your downtime, it's not wasted. Because if you can then build a skill set during that time to then enable you to do something to give you joy, and maybe that's part and parcel with work, I think that that's what you should be focusing on. So for me, right, it's, you know, if I'm doing an insurance or regulatory compliance type stuff, do I get complete joy out of that? No, right? But do I do it in order to live the lifestyle we want? Yes. And then do I spend my time learning about AI and technology and the things that give me joy? That maybe one day I'm can start a business in AI or do something with AI or, technology or photography or music or whatever it is that gives me that spark. If I'm learning things, whether or not it's podcasting or creating videos or leveraging AI to then create music and whatever, then I think that that's kind of the what people need to be focusing on. That's
Yeah. That's the
what I
philosophical
preach.
question that I'm debating because I don't disagree with you. I think that is more of our grandparents' model. I go to work to pay for my kids and the mortgage
Yeah.
and to eat, put food on the table. That's the basics of what my
Yeah.
grandfather would have told me, right? Everything else is my time. I do with it what I will. Um, I think we have become really bad at time management versus our grandparents. And these are people that remember they had to like do their own dishes. There wasn't no
Yeah.
dishwasher.
Right.
Laundry was harder because they had 5 kids,
Right.
right? And so there weren't microwave ovens. So there weren't fast food restaurants.
Yeah.
There was no Uber Eats. So their workload was exponentially harder than ours. Yet for us, it's like, can you get my thing out of the microwave? It's I don't feel like getting up right now. It's like,
Right.
Jesus,
Or I
really?
don't feel like getting in the car to drive to pick up my food or whatever, so
Yeah,
I'm going to get
yeah,
Uber Eats or whatever. So yeah.
yeah. So it's like it's really, and I think that's where I was saying earlier. Have we gotten so selfish that and so me oriented that that's why we expect work to give us joy because we want everything else in the world to please our dopamine, to give us
Right.
dopamine hits. And so we've lost track of like what things are really for. Work is to pay the bills, to do things you said. Everything else is my time. And if I feel like wasting a play on video games, then I should just shut my mouth when I'm not getting fulfilled.
Yeah.
Like, that's really it. But I don't think we as a society have that mindset anymore. We're more just like, why am I not happy?
Right.
Why I'm a great person. Why am I not happy? Work must not be fulfilling.
Yeah. I
And
mean,
it's
and it comes down to self-regulation, like all of that stuff.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
if you just want to spend your time doing mindless things, drinking your, face off, all of that stuff, more power to you, but then don't complain about it.
right.
Right. So, yes, if I'm giving a younger person advice, and this is what I tell my kids all day long, right? You want to scroll on Instagram and look at reels and do all that stuff, totally fine, right? But stop after a period of time. Give yourself a fixed amount of time that you're going to do it and not just get lost. Hey, listen, one night, if you just feel like sitting on the couch and doing that for hours on end, that's cool. But just know that there's other things that are out there, and you got to stop doing that to get yourself out there. Have those personal interactions, have, those things that are in life that you can't feel, touch, see unless you're outside the house looking up, not looking at a phone or anything like that.
Hmm. Yeah, that's perfectly well said. Is there any new stuff that you're working on that you want anybody to see, or do you have a website? Do you want to share? I can put it in the description.
Yeah, no, not. This is
No.
this is like me time. This is my stuff. This is this isn't work stuff.
Well, you can start that IT career, an AI career, put
Yeah,
your own
right.
website, PeteAI.com.
I need more time to do it.
All right. Well, I appreciate your time, and we'll get together with you, me, and Ross on a live stream, and we'll save the world. That's what we'll do.
And I'll figure out my technology, and hopefully it won't crap out again. All right, man.
Okay.
Thank you for doing this. Good talking to you, and
Good talking
looking
to
forward
you,
to the
Dan.
next time.